What's going on, guys? Nathan back with Western Reviews, and today we're going to be taking a look at the GMWD WJ00, which is GMWD's new 2-in-1 preacher curl and tricep curl machine that's cable driven, right? So first of its kind. I do want to be upfront with you guys and let you know that GMWD actually did send this to me free in exchange for a review, but that's not going to affect the honesty and some of the drawbacks for this machine that I think you guys should be aware of before looking to purchase something like this. So I'm going to put chapters below, but the TLDR for this is that for 400 bucks, you're getting a lot of versatility, you're getting pretty good strength curves, and a lot of smoothness in the movement because of this cable-driven and aluminum pulley design. But some of the drawbacks are going to be that there is no labeling for these, which is pretty typical for these sundial type of machines. And the padding is a bit thin, soft, and the actual preacher pad itself is a bit loose, even tightening it all the way down. Let's get into the full review. Let's go ahead and start off with talking about the unboxing experience and the assembly of this unit. So as far as the actual delivery of the unit was concerned, the actual box itself was in great condition and the unboxing experience was pretty good. So all of these small parts were separately packaged and labeled, and all of the big parts had plenty of styrofoam around them, right? So much styrofoam that I actually had difficulty getting the lid back on the box without any of the parts in it, which is a pretty good indication that everything was packaged really well. Now, the assembly of this is pretty straightforward. The directions were clear. It took me around an hour and 45 minutes. I did have time-lapse footage of that, but unfortunately it corrupted. Welcome to YouTube, right? So I can't show you guys what that looked like, but there weren't any glaring pain points or anything like that. That said, the tolerances are pretty tight, and so some of it took some patience getting together, but I prefer tight tolerances and a stable machine that doesn't go anywhere versus a very loose tolerance built machine that wiggles all over the place. So let's talk about the actual build of this machine. So it is a budget piece. And so for the 2x3 tubing on here, we're gonna have a 12 gauge steel. And for the 2x2 tubing, we're gonna have 14 gauge steel. Everything still feels really good and like it's gonna support all the weight that you need to use it for. But it's not that kind of buzzword 11 gauge steel that I feel like people like to hear in home gyms. Now, the actual powder coat on this, I think for the price is pretty good. It's pretty standard across GMWD at this point. It looks like their quality control is pretty good there, so no complaints. Now, speaking to the actual padding itself, so the padding for the arms and for the butt, I think it leans a little soft, and I also think it leans a little thin. So I'll show a picture here, but the seat pad itself is pretty thin. It's just 1 inch thick. And the actual size of it is 16.5 inches long and 10.5 inches wide. That said, it is a pentagon, right? So it's not like that whole surface area is usable, but that's the dimensions for it. Now, the actual arm pad itself, I'll show a picture up here, and the dimensions for those is 24 inches long, 11 inches wide, and it's 2 inches thick here where your arms go, and 3 where your armpit would go. So the vinyl itself is grippy, although not extremely grippy. So the vinyl itself is grippy, although not extremely grippy like some of the newer GMWD padding. So it does give me the impression that it could tear over time potentially, depending on how you use it, but you could see how there's a decent amount of slack in this. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest drawbacks for this is the actual cushion and padding, but I haven't been uncomfortable during any of the movements during my exercises. All right, so let's talk functionality and resistance profiles for this machine. So we already talked about that this is a 2-in-1 machine, a curl machine, and an extension machine, right? Now, right now it's currently set up for curls, and we're gonna talk about the different types of curls that you can do later on here in the video. but I'll put a clip up of a preacher curl right now and what that looks like with this machine. So what's nice about this is that the way that it's set up, by the time you pick up the slack out of the cable here, because there's a little bit of lag to catch that particular resistance for this weight horn, you're already stretched enough to feel good in the bottom of the movement. That said, I am gonna put a clip here of a fish scale with this, and it's gonna show you that for the curl type movements, without any modification, that at the bottom of the movement, it's gonna be the lightest. That's unfortunate, right? We want at least equal tension throughout, preferably heavier in the stretched portion of the movement. Now there is a modification that you can do though. And by modification, I don't mean taking things apart. I mean taking something that's thick enough to support this to give you clearance. I'm gonna use a yoga block here. And what you'll notice is that's gonna create a little bit of slack in the actual cable here. Now what I'm gonna do is pop this pin out and rotate this sundial, and I'm gonna lock it in. Now when I take this out, you could see that it's floating, but also that the plate is parallel to the ground. So I'm gonna put a clip of the new measured strength curve on the screen now, and what you're gonna see is this fixes that problem. And in the bottom of the movement, it's the same weight nearly as the top of the movement. So 1-to-1, just about consistent throughout. So although it's not a perfect strength curve, heaviest at the bottom, lighter up top, at least it's even throughout, which is better than what it started with. Now, for your tricep extensions, in order to switch to those, all you have to do is pop this pin out and swing this lever arm up. So with these style of machines before, usually you'd have to take a pull out, you'd have to flip the lever arm all the way around. But since this is cable driven, all you have to do is take this lever arm and move it back, and now you're good to do any extension type of movement. And so I'll put that on the screen and what that looks like now. As far as the strength curves for this, it's actually perfect. Heaviest in the stretch, softest or lowest in the contraction. Now you will notice that this handle is kind of dangling a bit, and that's because I removed one of the screws that kind of catch it from keeping it going too far forward or too far back. But I'm not gonna give you any spoilers. I want you to stick around to figure out why I did that, and it's for a good reason. Now, the actual plate horn itself can hold up to 200 pounds. So that's gonna be more than enough for all of us, right? And what's cool is that you don't only have the option of plate resistance, you also have the option of band resistance. So there's band pegs around here, all set for you to be able to integrate bands into this. So you can use bands and plates, or just bands. You get a lot of options and versatility with what you want to use for your resistance with this machine, and options are always great in a home gym. The amount of adjustability for this machine, I think, is fantastic. So we actually have 4 different points where we can adjust the 2-in-1 combo unit here. So we can adjust the height of the seat, we can adjust the height of the arm pad, we can change the starting position for our lever arm, and we can change our handle position. So for the actual seat itself, there's going to be 7 positions that you can change. For the pad, you can change it in 3 positions. The sundial here has 25 points where you can adjust, and then the handle position has 5. All of those options to adjust adds up to being able to fit anyone up to 6'3". And I think that the seat, pad, and sundial are adjustments that we've seen before, and it's great that they're there. But what I think that's interesting, that's new outside of this cable-driven machine, is being able to change the handle position itself. The reason why this is amazing is because it changes the actual arc for the movement itself. It changes the actual arc for the movement that you're feeling. And so instead of being in a fixed path in a circle for your curls, your overhead extensions, you can actually change how far in or out from the machine that is. So that's gonna accommodate height, and it's gonna accommodate differences in, you know, limb lengths for people who are the same height as well. And it allows you to really dial in the movements to make them feel better. Now, there is all this adjustability, but again, no labeling. So what I did was I took a silver Sharpie, and I'll show a clip of this here closer up so you can see what I did. But I just marked around the sundial and the actual positions on the handle here and the seat pad as well. And I just kind of notate the different positions for the different movements there. There is fully laser cut GMWD letters in here. I wish that they would have taken the same amount of time on that machine and just laser etched some numbers for us in these positions. I think it would have really made a nice quality of life difference there. One more thing worth mentioning is that I wish that there was more than just 5 positions on this handle. So I'm gonna pop a photo up here of what this looks like, but you can see there's actually room for 1, 2, 3, 4 additional holes that weren't taken advantage of, and I wish they were, because these jumps, even though they look small, they actually end up being pretty big differences in the arc. So I think this really would have allowed them to dial it in. So maybe in a version 2, that's something that they could look at in the future. All right, now getting into the actual performance of the machine regarding curl-like movements. I think that with the modification that I showed you to get that strength curve a little bit better in the curl-like movements, right? So getting this to be starting a little bit higher so that you're tensioned right at the bottom of the movement. There's no lag in catching the resistance. This feels seriously, seriously good. Now, especially being able to dial in the arc of the specific curl with this addition here, right? That makes a really big difference in the feel for this machine, to where there's more adjustability in this than a lot of the commercial designs that I've seen. So it feels really good there. Now, you know, there are preacher curls that you can do with this. That's kind of to be expected, but you can also do hammer curls with this. And not only can you do hammer curls, but because I removed that pin in the center that's originally right here, and this is completely free spinning, you can do those hammer curls in 2 different variations. Now, you can also do reverse curls with this as well. So that's a 3rd type of curl movement that you could do with this. So because of the adjustability of this arm, and because of, you know, the cable-driven aluminum pulley mechanism here for how everything moves and works, it feels really good doing your bicep curls. Now, talking about tricep extensions, right? So flipping this guy all the way around and how this actually performs and feels. So I already talked about the strength curve feeling very good, machine very smooth. Honestly, the movement feels great, but I've never been a fan personally of the push out type movements, right? So anything where you're pushing on a machine, and that's because once you get up to a certain amount of weight, it becomes a stability exercise. You're like bracing your core, and like you're eventually like pushing your body off the machine, which is never ideal. If this had something like a removable back pad or something like that, that you could just stick into the machine right here and you could brace against it with your upper back, I think it would seriously take it to the next level. But that said, they did kind of think about this when they were designing this, because the actual seat itself is angled down. So when you push into the machine, you're kind of taking away some of that pushback from the angle of the seat itself, but you know, it's still not super ideal. So something that you can actually do to get around that, and I'll show a clip of this, is you can get behind it, and if you're up against the wall, you could get close enough with the machine to the wall to where you could put your foot up or your butt against the wall to have something to brace against that's solid to push out, right? And so, like I said before, this is fully free motion. And so because of that, you're able to do 2 different grip variations for your tricep push out. I'll show a clip of what it looks like coming right up to your face and pushing out with how it's been demonstrated. But something I like better is actually changing the arc of the movement itself, getting it above and behind my head, because the stretch on that feels really, really good, and pushing out and above my head. So I kind of left you guys on a cliffhanger earlier when I was talking about why I removed this bolt in between here. And the first obvious reason is that I didn't like that it was limiting my range of motion that I could do, because originally it locks out here and here, right? So you're losing all of this extra movement. But what I did was I went on Amazon and I found something that has the same threading and an eye bolt attached so that I could screw it into those threads. And I'll fast forward here so you don't have to painfully watch me do this. Right. So now what this essentially allows for is for you to have a fixed center position and to lock the handle itself in place from spinning around. And why does this even matter? What's the point of this? Well, I'll put it on the screen now. Doing this, I was able to get an additional exercise out of this, which is overhead tricep extensions. And after you dial in the arc path, the starting point on this with the lever arm, it seriously feels really good. And I love overhead tricep extensions. So it's just a nice way to get an additional exercise out of it with a lot of stability and ease of attachment here with this eye bolt. Now, I wish that there was, two individual hooks here that have the same effect on the actual arm. Maybe that's what they could do in version 2 so that, people don't have to do this. But in the meantime, this is a good solution. Now, something else that I figured out was a way to actually turn this into a lat pullover machine as well. So essentially what I do, and I'll throw a clip up of this, is I have these 2 climbing carabiners that I slip onto the inside portion here, and I add my individual handles, and I can reach all the way back and pull over, and because of the arcing motion, it feels just like a pullover machine. So that's 2 additional exercises that you can use this machine for that you might not have thought of. And if there were individual hooks, then I wouldn't have to worry about those carabiners sliding all over the place, but it's a good filler way to accomplish a different exercise without having to wait for a version 2 of this machine. Something also worth noting is that for both of these exercises, it is a little bit awkward to swing and get into. So what you can do is just take this same yoga block, put it under the lever arm like I was talking about before. That gives you slack, so it's almost a DIY kick pedal. You could pick the tension up, and then you could start your overhead tricep extension or your pull down movement, and the yoga block will fall and you'll get your full range of motion there. Since this 2-in-1 is the first of its kind with this cable-driven aluminum pulley mechanism, there's not any direct competitors. So what I think is worth talking about in regards to competitors is different types of machines or ways that you can accomplish these movements. So obviously the plate-loaded equivalent to this is going to be the first one you guys are going to think of. All the companies have those, right? The sundial-based 2-in-1 tricep extension and preacher curls. Now, this is going to feel a lot better, and does feel a lot better than those, because of the cable-driven mechanism. So the problem with those other lever-based systems is that because it's a lever, once you get to the top in the contraction, you're losing just about all tension. And that's not the case with these machines. For the most part, you're maintaining resistance all the way throughout the movement, which makes this a better solution compared to those. Now, when we're actually talking about this versus, say, something like finding ways to do this with your bench and your integrated functional trainer rack or your standalone functional trainers, the reason I like this is because there's not a bunch of setup that's involved. So if you have the space for it, I think this is a really great option, and it's definitely better than what's currently out there for home gyms. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for the review of the GMWD WJ00. So just to kind of put a bow on everything, I think this is a really great machine. I think it's a great new alternative to these types of machines that were out there but plate loaded before. And because it's the only one of its kind, if you're looking into a 2-in-1 machine, I think that this right now, at least at the time of recording this video, is going to be the one to beat. Now, it does have some drawbacks, but the amount of strengths that it does have for the price point of $400 and the amount of versatility that it has too, I think makes it worth it. If I miss anything in the review, go ahead and drop a comment down below. I'll be sure to get to that whenever I get the chance. And if you think that you're gonna pick one of these up as a result of watching this review, please use the affiliate link down below because that gives me a small kickback, no extra charge to you, but it just helps me keep making different reviews like this and fueling the channel. So please subscribe if you enjoyed the review, like the video, and drop a comment in the algorithm for me, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.